The National Trust is proud to introduce The Seated Man, an amazing portrait that has been a catalyst for exploring Barthé's story and how it resonates with some inspirational black artists practicing today. Richmond Barthé was an influential African-American artist best known for his work in sculpture. Barthé became a prominent sculptor in New York during the 1930s and 40s. He socialised with artists, writers and thinkers who were actively working within the Harlem Renaissance, one of the most powerful black cultural movements of the 20th century. Critics of the time hailed Barthé as a visionary black artist, but he didn't want his achievements to be linked to his race alone. He once said, "Art is not racial. For me, there is no Negro art, only art." And in 1949 he moved to Jamaica, seeking a new creative life. Despite spending 20 years in Jamaica, Barthé never felt like he fully fitted in, and he began to feel isolated. The Seated Man is so special because very few paintings by Barthé survive. Whilst his sculptural practice prospered in Jamaica, he struggled to make a success of painting and was known to give away or even destroy his canvases after finishing them. For more than 60 years, Barthé dedicated his life to art in the broadest sense, creating an impressive and influential body of work which bravely explored and elevated the black body. We spoke to Alice, who is the Assistant National Curator for Pictures and Sculptures here at the National Trust, and she told us how excited she was at finding this specific piece of art by Richmond Barthé.
Behind me is an oil portrait called Seated Man by the African-American modernist sculptor Richmond Barthé. We discovered the painting during a cataloguing project, and it piqued our interest because it shows an autonomous black sitter. It can be very difficult to find out the identity of black sitters in historic portraits because of a general lack of documentation. But the fact that this was a modern portrait and clearly depicted a person rather than a kind of anonymised or idealised sitter was a really powerful research journey to go on. And a lot of historic portraits of black sitters, first of all, we don't know their identity, and second, they're often in hierarchical composition relative to a white sitter. When I saw the painting in person, I was able to transcribe the signature and almost immediately then found out that it was by Richmond Barthé, and I was so excited. For me, the painting is really important because the National Trust has very few artworks by black artists. So it's really important to research and highlight those pictures and sculptures that we do have. What was really important in my research was Vendrice's chapter on Barthé's Jamaican period, and it was through her research that I was actually able to identify the sitter. A photograph of the sitter, who is called Lucien Levers, was published in her book. Lucien was a domestic helper employed by Richmond Barthé to work at his house in North Jamaica. This process that we went through with the Richmond Barthé portrait sort of highlights the beauty of research that in well-known collections, which are rich and multi-layered, new stories can emerge when you least expect.
Meet one of our incredible talents, Eugene Ankoma, also known as EA. Eugene is a groundbreaking and multi-award-winning contemporary British visual artist of Ghanaian descent, who has been making art professionally for over 30 years. Visiting him at his studio in South London, we were excited to get his thoughts on how themes from Richmond Barthé's story might resonate with his own journey as an artist.
Hello everybody, my name is Eugene Ankoma, also known as EA. I'm a visual artist. I make paintings, I make drawings, I make prints, I use sound in my work, I create public installations. My style of art can be a little bit unpredictable. As you can see, I also use my outfit and myself as a canvas. But in terms of the face paint, that goes back to Africa, the African culture and what face paint meant. So my experience as being a Black creative, I think there are some kind of challenges in terms of how people see my work, where they think it's coming from. So sometimes I've done stuff and people are like, oh, is that a little bit of voodoo in there or whatever? Which I find really, really funny. Do I define myself as a Black artist? I think I'm an artist who's Black, not as a Black artist. So I hope people will look at me and see me as a person who is Black, who is projecting his experiences, the experiences of his people, the experiences of the world. That is what it's about for me, not necessarily that I'm a Black artist. I don't want to be pigeonholed. I've been doing this medium of art maybe for the last 8 or 9 years, but before then I had worked on other things that kind of led to this. I worked on lots of paintings using a lot of raw materials like wood, using lots of nails, feathers, black-eyed beans. It was really tactile and yeah, it kind of reminded you of Africa. Do I think I have the resilience of Barthé in this time? Absolutely. I mean, I know we live in a more advanced time, but I'll say that in any period in history, including now, there is no easy time to be an artist. And those who know my work will say to you that I've been pretty consistent since childhood, all the way till now. And of course, that has come with its challenges being an artist. But I think it's my resilience and my mindset and my willingness to be exactly what I want to be and do what I want to do, share my talent, my vision to the world. That's still got me here, still doing this. So I think resilience is definitely something that I will continue to show no matter what period you stick me in.
The renowned jazz artists who form the Jazz Trio have been delighting our ears with their music for over 40 years. The trio have built up a reputation of being one of the best in their field by creating sensitive ballads, engaging grooves and foot-tapping numbers. With their wealth of experience in the industry, we knew we had to get their thoughts on what's important to them as creatives.
My name is Edison Herbert. I put together the Edison Herbert Trio. I'm a guitarist.
My name's Jihad Darwish. Part of the Edison Herbert Trio playing bass.
My name is Winston Clifford. I'm a drummer. I'm a part of the Edison Herbert Trio. I also am a vocalist. The way playing makes me feel is joyous. I feel blessed to have a shared experience among great musicians and to create energy, which includes the people on stage and the audience.
I would have to play every day of my life, whether I was a musician or not. It's just something that's inside of me. We don't have any control over it, so it's a cathartic process that's part of my everyday.
In the playing process, I mean, playing with Jihad and Winston is a great communication, and we actually communicate through the music and pass the message on. So for me, it's just there's no other feeling like playing.
My background, my heritage is Jamaican family. It's, I call it half Jamaican, half British. Going back to Jamaica has definitely inspired my art. It's one thing being here and hearing how people do things here, but when you hear the authentic sound of Jamaicans living in Jamaica, doing what they do, it has to influence you. It's an incredible thing to witness. So it's definitely influenced the way I play music, without a doubt.
My dad's from Egypt and my mum's from Ireland. And I think if you're any sort of mix or anything, there's always a part of you that's interested in going back and finding out. And I recently went to Ireland for a tour and actually was really inspired by all the folk music. And it always feels like, sounds a bit kind of cheesy, but it feels like there's that's in there already. I get the same thing whenever I hear Arabic music or those kind of rhythms and stuff. So yes, I'm very interested in, I have been thinking about going back and staying with family in Egypt to investigate some of the music form there.
Both of my parents are from the small island that my dad would call the most beautiful island, Nevis. I've seen my dad in certain situations and seen the resilience that he's had and heard stories of things he had to go through. And that has been a really big influence, a positive influence.
I think if we were artists in Barthé's time, we would have his resilience. I think it's something that's inherent in the nature of what we do, this art form. Just to survive, I think you have to have a lot of resilience in any time.
In this art form, it comes with many challenges, and I think the resilience I have seen has, become part of me, and I use that daily, in my art form.
We want people to feel when they hear our music, wherever the audience, whatever we're playing, whatever the venue. It's an energy exchange, and one doesn't work without the other. So we just want them to feel something.
Hailing from Birmingham, Quilla Constance, otherwise known as QC, is a force to be reckoned with. As a globally renowned interdisciplinary artist, Quilla has been creating for the past 24 years. She believes that art should be accessible to everybody of all backgrounds. With this in mind, we knew we had to visit QC at her studio in Bedford to find out more.
Creating makes me feel quite liberated, quite excited, intellectually excited. I think the best art provokes reactions, whether that be kind of good or bad. If I was an artist in Barthé's time, I'd hope I'd have a lot of resilience. I think his circumstances and my circumstances are certainly quite different. Obviously, he had the fact that he was a black male. He had that as an obstacle, which I think he used quite well within his practice as well to actually empower himself. But in my case, I'm not only black or biracial, but I'm also female. And we all know how difficult it has been historically for women in the arts. Figures such as Barthé can certainly be of inspiration to all artists, whether male or female. And so I do derive a lot of inspiration from his struggle as an artist and the fact that he triumphed during the face of adversity, which I think is actually a remarkable achievement. I think my mixed heritage experience certainly informs my practice. I use my practice as a way of navigating that experience. I like the fact that it might be quite difficult to define who I am and where I belong. I think that when you can't label someone and you can't categorise someone, it's actually a position of power that they're in because they can't be contained. And it gives me the licence and the daring to kind of be quite free with my practice and actually myself as well as an extension of my practice. My late mother was white British and my father is black Jamaican. So yes, my heritage very much informs my approach, my artistic approach, and I use it to kind of become who I am and also to empower myself and hopefully other people as well who are experiencing the work.
Having spent time with these incredible artists over the past few days, and upon hearing more about their stories, we end here, where our inspiration began and where the seated man resides, Belton House.
Art is so valuable because it allows people opportunities to explore who they are.
It's really about communicating your perspective.
That is a way of sharing yourself with the rest of the world.
I feel it's important for establishments like this to showcase the work of black artists and performers, to simply redress the balance of history in the same way that a lot of women have been written out of history, black people have been written out of history. And so to redress that balance, it has to be a case of showcasing black talent. It's an important thing to do.
We should not forget that black history is white history, and people should experience it holistically as part of the narrative. And you can't understand white history without understanding black history and vice versa. I think it's extremely important for British institutions to show works by black artists and about black artists in order to read these narratives into historic narratives of white identities. It's vitally important that these artworks are included within British institutions in order to allow people to see where this heritage, this rich heritage, these rich narratives fit historically within white narratives as well. It's not a separate thing.
I think showing black artists, showing black subjects, I mean, without much thinking, it's a huge, huge important thing. Obviously, we hear a lot about representation from all parts of life, from all kinds of, industries. And some people may have been a bit tired of hearing it, but it's a very, very important thing. I think even the fact that I'm doing this, and there might be a young boy, a young girl watching this, and they will be encouraged just because they're seeing somebody who's familiar to them, be it, culturally, or the fact that they're interested in fashion, whatever it might be. I think the fact that we are doing this will encourage them to be able to kind of get up and be able to, move forward with whatever they want to do. It's really, really important that a place like this shows black works or works by black artists, because it's a way of saying to the black artist or to the black artists, thank you for contributing to the culture of this country.
Reflecting on the notion of identity expressed through art, it's clear that one thing boldly holds true. Senses of the self will always be at the forefront of artistic creation, just as they were to Barthé. We will continue to shine light on the work of inspiring, underrepresented talents who every day enrich and enliven our culture.